Hey, everybody, welcome. I am beyond excited to the point of bursting. My friend Jen Friel and I are reconnected after a long time. Not that we were ever disconnected. She
Oh.
just, you know, but Jen, welcome. I,
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
you got it. And I'm going to start off by reading your post. What I did was uh, kind of inserted it there. So, folks, if you
Oh,
want to know her story,
thank
please,
you.
I encourage you beyond measure. I encourage you to go to jenfield.com, where she's best known as the founder of the website Talk Nerdy to Me. So you know what? I'm not going to read this. I know you, but this part I don't know. In the
This is great.
past year, she was diagnosed with autism and a condition called synesthesia,
Hmm.
which you write is a lesser known neurological disorder, where in simple terms, the input sense is not the output sense.
Hmm.
And you explain that your senses are merged. You quite literally marches to the beat of your own drummer, and you're
There's
the
me.
yeah. And sexism, and you say it's quite rare for women to be diagnosed with either autism or synesthesia. I'm
Hmm.
going to start right there because I want you to, fill us in. First of all, let's talk. When I knew this, my incredible looking timeless friend. Who, do you remember we were at the Polo Lounge?
I remember we were at the Polo Lounge. I remember that was for the night of 100 stars. I remember bumping into you randomly at Comic Con. I
Yep.
remember all the times we saw each other at CES because, which is funny because that should have been a hint that there was something neurodivergent about me because I can't do the crowds at conferences. So I would always be in the tech room. And that's where,
Yep.
yeah, I'd see you a
Yep.
bunch.
But also, you met John Mayer.
I did meet John Mayer. I've met John Mayer a couple of times, and I can't say any of them have been too pleasant, but I
Oh,
did meet John Mayer.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I remember we were there, and we folks they were we just had a fantastic time, a lot of moments, great
Yeah.
moments. Uh, but I am pleased as punch that you sold your blog, and
Well, technically, the this is the best part about it is it got optioned twice, and so then the second time it got optioned, it technically sold to CBS. I was
wait,
in a
wait, wait, cha-ching,
I
cha-ching.
know. It was in a four-way bidding war between ABC, CBS, NBC, and Fox, but it wasn't my actual life story. And so then Les Moonves didn't pick it up at CBS. This was in like 2016. So it was my COVID project, technically during COVID. So I repackaged it, repitched it. It's still in development. But bottom line is I during COVID was like, I just better make sure I own everything. So that's what I did, and I own for the first time in 10 years absolutely everything that I've ever created. And it's the best feeling ever. Yeah.
Did you
I
start?
do lawyers review it just to make sure.
Did you
But I own everything I created.
did you start a C corp to do that? I'm 60% over a C corp now, so that's why I was wondering how do you
Technically an S Corp, yeah.
S corp?
Yeah.
Nice. Nice. What advice do you have for, and this is a bit of a diversion, I apologize, but I have to ask you, being a creator and a pioneer creator at that, what advice do you have for creators now who are looking to monetize what they do and maybe they're having trouble?
Oh, it's so much easier now. Yeah, I had to like sit in a room and explain half of what all of this meant. That's why I called it bartering social media to live. It's just influencer marketing now. To any influencer that wanted to really get started or to look for sponsors, I always went after companies and brands that I already loved. And I'm not quiet about the things that I love. I'm like the biggest champion. It's like my true engineer brain that I'm like, this is exactly like I love your product. Here's exactly all the reasons why I love your product. And that's what people respond to. And then maintaining that integrity is what gets people like interested in coming back and getting customers and all that. So, but it really comes down to just integrity.
And also production, because you do it, you produce it, you
Oh yeah.
right? I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
things are second nature to
It's a
you.
grind. Yeah, I love what I do so much. I mean, it's really, really a grind. And but it's so rewarding. And now, especially now that I have a new mission in helping people become aware of their like potential sensory processing disorders, now I'm on fire. It's great. So I was so happy when you reached out.
But take me back, because one of the worst moments of my life was when I remember you heard it happened to you on Melrose, where some wacko
Yeah.
attacked you out of the blue.
Yeah, that sucked. So it actually happened on Sunset.
Crying. I'm
Just
sorry,
like
Joe, not
no
crying.
worries. It was right across the way from Rock and Roll Ralph's, and it's such an LA story that, of course, two reality stars would like be taking me to the hospital. One was on Survivor, the other was on Apprentice. But yeah, I mean, wrong place at the wrong possible time, and it was 24 hours. So he hits me over the head with a brick, and then, but I didn't know it was a brick at first. I had to like go back to thank them 2 weeks later. They thought I was dead. They didn't think I was gonna like live. And but they chased him down. He had over $1 million bail bond thing, and yeah, he robbed a liquor store after, and then was like held up at gunpoint at Hollywood and Highland. But it was really sad, and so I testified on Valentine's Day, and it was right before our stage show, 24 hours before. So I don't remember my monologue at all from the stage show, but I got up and I did it, and I was really proud of that. But it was really sad because, you know, I then had to testify in court on Valentine's Day, but then I watched through the legal process, which was only like 6 months. I watched a man that could barely keep a coherent focus get the medicine that he needed, you know, in prison. And I mean, he had been in jail at that point for my entire life, in and out, because they had to read all of the different instances as he was getting sentenced. Like, you're aware that this is, they basically read like a version of his record and make sure that he understood what he was committing to. And I was not happy that that happened. I'm so lucky that I lived. But bottom line is he's getting the help that he needed. He was supposed to be in prison for 19 years. Unfortunately, he's out somewhere in San Diego now. You know, I hope he's living the best life. I hope that that 10 years got him, you know, at a place that he can be a productive member of society. I don't know, but I hope.
With it now, but now you discover you're autistic. Now, for those who think they know what that is, educate me, because I have never. Well, this is, you know, an opportunity for me to learn too. What
Yeah, so
is
it
it?
was very strange how like all these things started happening. So I was also stalked, and which is a very scary experience. But bottom line is I didn't know I was seeing auras around people. So I've always just referred to it as the cookie cutter shape I see around people, because it's colorless. If you think auras, you would think colors. And so I'm like, so I'm in therapy, like processing this, and I'm like, yeah, well, then a square walked into the bar, and everyone just thought I was being cute and cheeky, like very hyperbolic as a writer, because I like speak my own language and in my own way. And thank goodness she said this. She's like, well, what do you mean? Can you draw it for me? And then I did. And she's like, I think you have a condition called synesthesia. And I'm like, what? And so I see auras around people. I also have facial blindness. I don't recognize people by their faces, but I recognize them by their auras. And then I also have, I hear vibrational energy, so I can hear tones in people, which is how I end up in all these amazing situations. It's like I have like a game genie of a heat map that like something's going to happen here. Like how else would all of these things so consistently happen to me? Like even recently, I was in the middle of nowhere in Marfa, Texas, and I sat down directly in front of it was one little spot that had shade. I sat down directly in front of Jack Dorsey and Rick Rubin, arguably two of the most influential people in like modern history, casually having lunch as I'm in my skeleton onesie sitting outside a teepee. Like the fact that the fact that we were in the same place at the same time is remarkable. The fact that I sat down directly in front of him, I was like, what is going on? It was just amazing. But now I finally get to take ownership of all of these different things that I couldn't explain. Like how I've recognized a friend of mine halfway down the street from a moving bus, but I didn't recognize Robin Williams when I was privately having a conversation with him. So it's like these things, yeah, like arguably one of the most famous people, also too, in modern history. This is the theme. I was 18, but I sat down next to him and I was so captivated by his hair, because that's another like sign of autism. Like I was obsessed with his hair. So I wasn't really fully processing that I'm talking to Robin Williams, because he was so different than what you saw on television. He was very mild mannered, very, very quiet, very demure, if you will. And as I walked away, my girlfriend's like, how did you keep your composure? I'm like, what do you mean? I was like, you know, I was trying to find Enrique Iglesias technically. I was like, I failed at finding Enrique because I just didn't really want to bother him, because I'm like, what am I going to do? Have sex with him? I'm like, not my thing. So I'm like, but I'm like processing all this in real time. And so then I'm sitting right next to you at the Four Seasons pool in Beverly Hills. I'm sitting directly next to Robin Williams, just casually having a conversation. Like I've done this every day of my life, as I'm passionately trying to pursue Enrique. And but I had no idea. So how can I recognize someone halfway down the street from a moving bus, which is unbelievable? But I can't recognize one of the
Halfway down the street in a moving
halfway down the street from a moving bus. Yeah, it freaked my husband out.
Wait, are you bionic and don't know it? Just kidding.
I don't know. What's interesting is in the instance where I recognized my friend from a bus, I was in a very relaxed, meditative state. I was on a date night with my husband. We're at one of our favorite spots, a couple of glasses of champagne in. So I was very like chill versus Robin Williams, for example. I mean, the energy was like palpable. I'm sure I was like buzzing like a hummingbird. I'm 18 years old at the time, and I just, I'm crashing the pool at the Four Seasons. So I was very focused on having a mission. So I think that there's some truth to this of being in a certain state of mind. I'm not entirely sure, but that's what I have a little spreadsheet, and I've just been kind of jotting down these really cool things that I've been able to do. But like where was I? What was I wearing? Who was I with? What did I take that day, if anything? Like what, just to start to be like, okay, well, if I want to be a bionic woman and recognize someone from halfway down the street on a moving bus, I need these factors to be able to do that. So it's a gift. I just had to learn how to harness it.
Hey, how did you meet your husband? Because there was no man when I talked to you per se. Well, there's always been men, but the whole point is, you know what I'm saying?
Well, that's
man.
We met technically through like a series of events. He was on my last first date and was with the guy that the movie Good Luck Chuck was based off of, which he's the guy that you date before you actually marry your person. We just connected the dots on this like literally a couple months ago. But I met him through just a series of these random events in LA, but it wasn't until a mutual friend of ours moved into our building, and she's like, I think you guys need to meet. I don't know what either of you do for a living, but it sounds like you're pretty similar. And so I just made Sombrero Saturdays a thing. So I show up at this birthday party the next day at Moon Shadows, which is like really, really nice. And I show up in a sombrero and on fleek t-shirt, and we just hit it off. But he had this woman hitting on him the entire time. Like her legs were spread eagle, and he's like closing them just to be able to talk to me. It's so funny. And so, but then he got so overwhelmed, and he's very proper. He's like very, very proper. So like he was so overwhelmed, he just left. And so he never got my number. So afterwards I was like, can you give Jeff my number? Like technically I had to like pursue him in that moment because he was so overwhelmed that he didn't even ask for my number. But then we fell in love. We fell in love at Burning Man. And so we've been married now almost 3 years. It'll be 3 years in October. Yeah. He's a good one. But he's been with me through this whole diagnosis journey to go from one day literally waking up and the rest of my life changed. And he has been so supportive. In autism, there's something called unmasking. So unmasking is super important because it's like going back to what your natural brain is and not the monkey brain that you have, the way that, we're programmed. And so unmasking is really scary because it's kind of like a security blanket. It's been my safety tools. And so now I'm like, oh, I'm going to literally live my best life. Like I have to do these things. And so imagine, having your partner be a certain way for, a mighty long time. And then all of a sudden, literally overnight, I was like, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to do this. I don't really want to do this. And so there was that kind of balancing, if you will, but to have him and to feel so unconditionally loved through the process. I mean, what more can you ask for?
And then you mentioned being autistic, but also there is the other part of what you're going through, and that's synesthesia.
Yeah. Synesthesia, it's like a little superpower. So it's if you've seen the TV show Poker Face, so I have projective synesthesia. So everything that I'm experiencing, I experience it like it's here. So that's my like primary. And then for so it's projective and associative. For smell, I'm associative, and I caught myself doing it when I was in a porta potty. I was like, man, this smells. But I was like, wait, I don't smell anything. I didn't know. I thought I had a bad sense of smell because my husband can smell everything. I didn't know quite how bad it was. So I can smell it like a 1 to 2 if it's really good or really bad, or like a 9 to 10. Anything in between doesn't exist. And I didn't even know until like a month ago that gummy bears had individual flavors. They're one of my safe foods, and I eat them for the texture. And my girlfriend's like, man, she's like, you're not even, you don't put any aside. You eat them all. She's like, I don't like this flavor. I don't like this flavor. And I just looked up. I was like, gummy bears have flavors? So
Yeah.
it explains so much, because I've always been into really, really spicy food, and just things that I can't explain. I will listen to the same song for like a week, and it's just so like interesting that it's what makes me unique. But now I get to own, literally as I own everything I've created, I get to own the person that created all of this, and really celebrate the beauty around it, and learn to ground myself in the process. I have my sensory glasses, and so I can literally conquer the world in a onesie, sensory glasses, and headphones, and earplugs.
You said
I can regulate
something, and I want to make sure I understand it, but you said that you can literally sense when a person is evil.
Well, I've been using it recently to fight crime. This is very true. Yeah, I'm not kidding. So I've outed 2 con men, and well, I also planned the meeting for my friend and neighbor's murder, which was pretty amazing just to get to do.
Say that one more time?
Yeah, my friend and neighbor was murdered, and so I planned the meeting for my friend's murder, because the building management didn't do anything, and which is like so extremely and unbelievably disrespectful. So I was able to do that. And but then when I with synesthesia, I literally, like, the first time I saw I did it was with this gentleman who wanted to invest, or he's not a gentleman, excuse me, but he wanted to invest in Talk Nerdy. And so, like, now that I know I'm autistic, I have to do a deeper dive on people, because now that I'm tuning into synesthesia more, I can pick it up faster. But it's like a muscle. It's something that's always been there that I didn't know to listen to.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sitting there, and I'm like, now knowing I can like see auras and whatnot, that's like actually a special gift. And I'm sitting there, and I'm like just staring at this dude, and I'm like, why am I seeing a coin? It was a DuckTales coin. And I'm like, okay, this is interesting. Well, he's an investor. Like, then I'm trying to like rationalize in my head, like, oh, he's an investor, so this is this. And what's wild is I even dated his business partner's son. So once I started to research him, because of course I did, like once I started to research him, I would have stopped right there had I not known I'm autistic. And I made a pact to myself and to Jeff. I'm like, I don't let people in until I trust, but I also verify.
But I would have to ask, as
Mhm.
we both have companies now, and so when I get an investor inquiry, it's not as often as I prefer, but I've gotten some weird ones. Like one guy said, basically it was like he was the Klingons in Star Trek. Basically, Enterprise prepare to be boarded or destroyed. That's how he essentially worded the email. Yeah, it was really bizarre. But I would guess some of the investors you get are not really investors; are more kind of people who are maybe thinking of you in the wrong sense as a business person.
I get all types. And so now I am getting so much better at figuring out which one's which. But I also think that just comes with being a female entrepreneur. I had to learn kind of how to navigate, and thankfully the dating world taught me plenty. But it was just so wild with this guy. So he lived in our building too. So I would see him all the time. And so bottom line is I see this coin, and then I do a deep dive, and he had like something like 20 something restraining orders out on him. He was a dangerous, like literally a dangerous person, specifically against women. And so like, but I figured it out. There was even a book written about him, and like it was a big story. Yeah. And so so imagine finding all of this out, and then I tell management, and I mean, technically, I don't think you really can do something if someone's paid their dues and their time and whatnot. Like, it's been done. You just can't violate probation, I'm sure, or something similar. So like I would still have to hang out with this guy for 6 months. And so I researched Joe Navarro, who's one of the #1 body language expert guys in the world. So when I thought I was reading body language, and I'm like, I'm really gifted, there's something here, I'm gifted, that what am I able to do here? I don't understand. And he goes, Jen, stop seeking a guru. He's like, just pay attention and like basically figure it out. So I'm like, oh, this is exciting now, because now I have this like true con man. So I got to observe his behavior for 6 months. It was endlessly fascinating, to say the least.
Did you
He,
him or did you?
I'm sorry?
did you have a chance to share it with him, what you discovered, or?
No, well, I didn't feel comfortable, so I had to keep
Sure.
a literal poker face. So thankfully, I went to the Lee Strasberg Theater Institute when I was 17. So I have at least the basics of that between that and improv. I studied at Groundlings, so I could kind of manage my way through it. But it was just so wild because people like that, he's the ultimate dangerous type in the sense that he's very charming and very charismatic, but the stuff he would say was almost so ridiculous. Like he couldn't pronounce the name of things. So like instead of Robertson, he would say Robinson. He's like, that's where my office is, by the Ivy. And it's like, I think you mean Robertson. So there was a lot of like humor in it. Like he commented on a skirt I was wearing and he's like, oh, what's that? Tory Burch. And it's just like, like yeah, like just the stuff we took notes on it, Jeff and I, my husband, because obviously we're writers, so we're using this content. But just the true ridiculousness of it when someone's mask starts to slip, not unmasking in autism, that's actually a really good thing. But
Mhm.
when someone who's like a con man, let's say, or like a narcissist or anything, they subtly show you who they really are. And if you can pay attention to that, that's a game changer. But I didn't know to pay attention to it because I didn't really understand what I had really with it. But anybody can do the looking at seeing someone's mask slip. When someone shows you who they are, you need to believe them. And that is hugely important. Because a lot of times we'll sit there and go, oh, they had a bad day, or, oh, something was just happening, their dog died, like whatever. No, when someone shows you who they are, you need to believe them. And then you have the responsibility, if you will, of taking action and deciding what those boundaries look like.
Hey, I'm curious because one thing that I I'll just cut to the chase. It sounds to me like from a religious perspective, you're able to seek out and avoid places where they're evil.
I mean, the problem was pre-diagnosis. I didn't know any of this, so it tends to lead to a lot of trauma because I would trust the wrong people. Now I'm very aware, but in terms of what you just said, actually, this is really funny. This happened only a couple months ago. In Los Angeles, they have those things that say like "Do not walk on them," and they're like these, I don't know, like steel doors, and they go down to the subway. So they say "Do not walk on them." So I was literally on it for like a split second, got off, and then the door just flung right open. And I stood there for a moment. And then, all the people at the bus were like, because they thought I was like going to go flying in the air. So all the people at the bus are just like standing there staring. And I'm like, yeah, okay, well, thank you, little whatever that energy is, whatever that ness is, if you will. I do get a lot of information, but now I can use it and really guard myself and protect myself while also not letting anyone dim my sparkle.
See, it's funny now you're trying to make me think about things that happened in my life differently.
Mm-hmm.
But for example, in 2006, I got on BART, headed to Walnut Creek. I turned left, and my friend from Cal, Kofi Barner, was there. He was sitting with a guy named Sam Singer, who I met once before at the Niners when he was working for the 49ers, and I was trying to bring Super Bowl to Oakland. Anyway, uh, Kofi said, "Hey, Zenny can help me with my problem." That's how I started doing reputation management. But Sam became my client. He's been my client. That was 2006 to this day. And but it's odd that I got on a train and I had this thing where I get on BART, and this happened 3 times a month where I get on BART and I immediately see somebody that I knew. But I didn't. See, now I'm wondering if there's really something to that as opposed to just coincidence.
I don't believe in coincidences. Like, so the first series that I did, so I decided once I figured out what all this was, and intermittently not being like pure rage angry, because I was like, I've had seizures, I've had hospitalizations,
I
I've
remember,
shit with
right?
myself. Yeah, like I've had dizzy spells. I've had so many things that I've taken so many tests over the years, and they're like, you're unremarkable, you're unremarkable. I was like, I take that personally. I am very remarkable, but not like I couldn't figure it out. And then to have it be something so simple that I was put on all these different medications, and it diluted me down to like a bag of bones. And I'm like, now literally all I need to function, like I said, are my headphones, glasses, a onesie. I'm like, it's the best thing ever. But it was very, very frustrating. But bottom line is I worked with this animator who I didn't know also had synesthesia. And my first series went really viral. It went viral 6 times, only on Facebook and Instagram, and separately. It was pretty wild to get to see, because when you go viral, because it's like everything just shoots up and all the notifications. And so yeah, I'm really proud of it. And I think just the more people become aware of this, the more they can kind of self-regulate. And my goal in this is to like even for example, when I go out at night, I always have a roadie, because it takes me a minute to balance people and the tones and the environment. Because during the day when I go out and about, I don't talk to anybody. Like I just live in my own little world, and I sit there and I'm interacting, quote unquote, but I'm not really engaging with people. But at night, that's when things, I want.
Even my mom is 88 and she wants to go shopping by herself, which I'm here to discourage her. She's all I've got. And so, but Jen, there are people I can literally sense mean not good for my mom when I'm in the store. And I'll tell my mom, hey mom, close your purse, right?
Yeah.
I can't explain other than, well, first is a love for my mom, so I'm tuned in, right? But there's it's like an icky feeling.
Yeah. I'm getting really good at I've always been good at reading people and being very perceptive, but now I can spot it so quickly now. And so I'm trying to figure out if I'm attaching a tone to it too. I don't know, because tones are naturally occurring.
What do you mean?
So
color tone or?
No, like an actual literal tone. So there's a song at any given moment in my head 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I didn't know that it actually makes a lot of sense, because I hear colors have a tone to them. I hear vibrational energy. And so from people and locations, it's like animals. It's like, it's kind of it's a lot of noise sometimes, but I don't know how to be any different. I've been this way my whole life. But bottom line was with the con man, I was like, okay, this is great. I'm in this, again, unique position. And so the second time it happened, because I went viral, I was introduced to this gentleman, and immediately I knew. I was like, this guy is full of it. He's absolutely full of it. And I'm like on cloud 9. I'm like, guys, this is so great. But it was also very overwhelming, because I was still going viral with a sensory processing disorder. So it was all the notifications, and it was a couple months of a lot. But bottom line was when I was on a Skype with him, I just knew that he was a con man. And even though my friend was like fully vouching for him, and my friend's not a con man, he's actually very, very brilliant at what he does. But I just wanted to distance myself from this guy immediately. Now I had given him $1,400 to work on this project, and he hadn't delivered. And it said in writing that, the money's guaranteed. So I had to convince him to give me my money back. So what I did was I told him, I was like, oh yeah, well, I'm fundraising right now after going viral. So I was like, I need the P&Ls to be clean. And so this is actually technically a loss. So if you give me back my money now, and then send me your rates for your new rates. Cause I know that, cause I was one of like the first customers or whatever. So I got like $500 off, whatever it was. But bottom line is, I was like, send me your new rate, because I'll just incorporate that into the new business model. So it'll all be clean. But I just need you to send me back this $1,400 so that there's a transaction of it. And it worked, and I got my money back.
So when is the movie about Jen Friel? No, I'm serious.
Yeah, well, it's so interesting now, because I'm in such a really great space. So I have a couple of friends that I'm talking to right now, potentially about some sort of docuseries or something. I don't know yet, but I know I'm launching a company, and I know that that's a really always an exciting thing. And so yeah, so we'll see. But Talking Nerdy is still doing well, it's still in development. But the funny thing is this is, oh, and pardon me, there's a helicopter. But the funny thing is this is the most interesting angle of it. All of a sudden waking up, realizing I'm autistic because I was stalked and see shapes around people. It's such a wild story. And so I changed the header on my website. I'm like, the unbelievably true story in mental health.
Yeah.
Because I live it every day, and I thankfully am really good at documenting things. But every day, I'm like, something even more interesting happens. So it's not which I guess is job security as a content creator.
There you are. See that?
So yeah, thank you. But how cool is that too? That I get to own the fact that I'm a genius. That is so exciting, because I always knew I was smart, but I would just also do, from my perspective, dumb things. And so I was like, no, that's actually self-deprecation. stop self-deprecating. So I told myself I'm not going to self-deprecate anymore.
I never thought of you as dumb, and that never entered my head at all.
But it is funny. It is
Entrepreneurial,
funny going.
creative, yeah, creative, and then 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 loving.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank you,
that,
thank
that,
you.
yeah.
That's
That's
very kind.
oh,
So
well,
it's
yeah.
funny now when we go to parties. My favorite thing to do is when, and especially the parties that like.
You know what? I have to say this. I remember when we first met, and you came by to get me at my hotel. I was staying at the in Beverly Hills at the center, whatever it is, and you were like, I mean, you were awesome. It was, is there anything you need? I was like, you're my, I said something like, you're my friend. You don't have to do that. No, no, no.
I
You know,
probably had a corporate sponsored car at the time.
you did. Yeah, you did. You did. Yeah. We were
Sure.
talking about that too, because you were saying,
Yeah.
because I was saying, how does that, because you did that. And also, Sarah Austin was
Oh
very
yeah, she was part of the Fiesta movement. She was, I think, a chapter 1 agent. I was chapter 2.
yeah, and yeah, she's both of you guys have done some awesome things in this life, and so that's what we're talking about. But
Yeah.
what I remember is that how supportive you were, how nice.
Yeah.
That lives forever.
Well, I'm
Like,
genuine, and it's funny. I was just saying this the other day because this other gentleman who we were hanging out with on Saturday, he's like, you're just really genuine, and I was like, my name's Jen Friel. That's genuinely for real. Like I could make that up if I tried. Yeah. So,
T-shirt. That's a T-shirt.
like it, but it it took all of these instances, like even Tiffany Haddish placed an offer for my life rights. Like I've had all these massively.
Tiffany Haddish.
Tiffany Haddish did too, yeah. And so
Whoa.
I've had, and she took it. She had a first look deal at HBO, and so she took it. She read the script, took it immediately to HBO, and I'm like, wow, this is my life today. Like, because it's also very ordinary, but then extraordinary things.
Talk to me how that happened, because that's news.
Yeah.
Is
Well,
that a scoop? Just give me a scoop.
No, because this happened all many years ago. So
Oh.
I used to talk because I was very excited about like, oh, this is the TV process. This is what this is. I'm going to talk about it as I go. That doesn't really work, and people don't like that necessarily. So yeah, I can't mention anything current, but yeah, but Tiffany Haddish, I like woke up one morning and I'm just like getting this news, and I'm like, I still have to go about my day. I still have responsibilities and all these different things, but it's just been such an adventure. And I'm so happy and grateful that now I know what these things are. I can monitor my intake of senses, like after this, because it's very bright out over here. I know I'm going to need my glasses, but like what a game changer. And it's just really, really simple stuff.
Two things. First of all, I want to gauge our time. How are we doing on time with respect to your schedule?
Yeah, I'm great.
All right. Other question. For people watching this or who are going to see this in the future, where do they go to get help? Where do they go to figure out what's going on with them?
Yeah, reach out to me in social media. I'm coming up with, this is literally, I have some more rounds of meetings tomorrow, but check out talknerdytome.com. I'm on Instagram at talknerdytomelover, Facebook, Twitter, the whole nine. But bottom line is just reach out, and even if you remotely suspect something, there's a really great test. It's called Embrace Autism that you can go to. It's the RAIDS test. I don't know what any of this means. I just know that that's a test that I send to a bunch of different people. But it's at Embrace Autism. Embrace with a hyphen autism.com. That one's really good. And yeah, and with synesthesia, there unfortunately is no testing for it. But that's what I'm trying to be on this mission to figure out. Like, why isn't there a synesthesia test? They have one, which is basically the equivalent of an online quiz. I'm like, that's like taking a hearing test as a written test. That doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. So yeah, so I'm on this grand mission to really make a change in how these things get diagnosed and processed, because I mean, it's only been, I'm tearing up, it's only been 15 months, but like my entire life has changed. And, how many more people get to, are also out there doing the same things and not really understanding why they're different, and that's so isolating too. Like I'm not unconvinced I'm not an alien, but like it's so isolating, and it just in self-deprecating and all these different things, which then lead to really crappy people being in your life. Like, so it's a cause and effect of these very, very dramatic changes. But all it was just, again, very simple. There you go.
And also, as someone who's down there and you're a creator and you're the writer's strike, what do
Oh
you
yeah.
think about it, and how is it affecting you, or is it?
Um, well, it doesn't really affect me in the same way that it affects me in the way that it's affecting everybody right now, in terms of like content and in terms of the streamline of content that this is affecting down the road that we won't even see yet. But I've been affected by a lot of strikes in terms of the TV production when the writers had to like fire their agents and whatnot. The APA or one of the deals completely like sacked all of these generals and meetings that I had set up and to pitch. Like literally overnight, we went from having like the biggest call sheet of like people in Hollywood to then, well, I had to, the writer at the time going, I had to fire my agent. So I was like, so what happens to the meeting? She's like, we can't take the meetings now. So I'm like, so what did I do? After playing Jeopardy with my dog, then Buster at the time, I picked up the phone and called Jerry Bruckheimer, and he actually called me back. I'm
Oh,
like, wow, that's really. I'm like,
whoa!
yeah. I'm like, okay. So
Wait,
again,
wait! Stop right there.
I picked up the phone and called him.
What was that like? What was that conversation like? As much as you can divulge.
Oh yeah, no,
How did that
I
happen?
can talk fully about it. So again, all this stuff is they are so wonderful. So again, I'm in this situation and I'm like, I'm so excited. I've like waited, for so long because TV takes forever. I've been at this for like 10 years. So I'm like, okay, great. I get my shot. I'm up at the bat. I'm like listening to my playlist, like all pumped up. And so, very unfortunate that this occurred. But I was like, you know what? I'm like, I know people. Like I'm going to pick up the phone. And so I did. So I called Jerry Bruckheimer's office, and I actually interned for him. Technically, I was a PA. I
Oh,
temped for him. It was my first job in Los Angeles. I turned it down because I wanted to listen to the radio at this other job that I worked at in movie marketing for 2 years. But they let me listen to the radio, and Bruckheimer didn't. So I was like, okay, but like, well, who turns on a job for Jerry Bruckheimer? But I did, and so then I pick up the phone to call him, and I'm so nervous. I'm like in my startup's little pantry, and there was like a raccoon sign on the fridge, and I'm like, I got this. He's the one. He gave me 2 checks, not one but 2. I'm like, he gave me 2 checks, and I've never even had a conversation with him. So when my everything sold initially, I was living on an island. I moved back so I could be a part of my own show, and I was on a CNBC show as well, and both announcements hit in the same week. So I'm like, oh, okay. Like I've never even had lunch with my agents at CAA, which is so not me at all, which is kind of interesting. But bottom line is I'm like, I didn't know, they know who I am, but I'm like, I didn't get a chance to like say anything or whatever. So yes, I picked up the phone and called him, and I knew. So I dated the gentleman who wrote my life rights agreement, and I knew that they knew about, because of course I did. He's like, I know you, and I'm like, BS. And so he took a picture, and it was literally my life rights agreement. I was like, okay, we should probably go to dinner. And he told me, he's like, they loved the name, and they knew about the 103 dates in 9 months. And I was like, that's it? It was like, what? I was like, oh, like, first of all, thank you. That's amazing. But I'm like, wow, this is so, it was just so interesting that I'm like, wow, okay. But hey, it is what it is. And it was like having a kid, watching it go to college. But when I called him, he didn't put me through right away. Let's just say that. So he called me back, and I said specifically on the phone, I was like, I'm calling about our project, Talk Nerdy to Me, and so then I called. I sent Facebook requests. I sent 2 Facebook requests. They both got accepted. So I looked at all the producers that were listed in the deadline announcement, and I called either them directly, their offices directly, or I would call like their representatives, like an attorney. But it was 2 Facebook requests that actually worked, and then it was from people directly. I don't want to like reveal who they were,
sure.
but bottom line, they accepted, and I'm like, oh my god, here I am. I'm here, and he's like, hey, I'm just letting you know, we're out of the office, but I'll give you a call back next week. So I'm like, I didn't even like, again, all I wanted was a chance. Like, just get me, like, I'll grab a bat, I'll grab the ball, I'll figure it out. Just give me a shot, throw that pitch.
And unless
And
it's cold
so
calling, it works, right?
it does. It works, and I think especially when you're really genuine and you actually care about what you're doing, that's when things like come back threefold. That's when things hit to such a degree that it's almost unbelievable. And so like it's kind of like, what do they say? It's like fate disguises themselves as like coincidences.
Yeah.
So yeah, but then I'm talking to literally, arguably the biggest producer of all time, and he's like, "I'll read your script," and so I'm like, well, this is, I mean, okay. It was like the longest week ever waiting. But then I'm in Amish country in the middle of nowhere for my startup, literally like Amish country. There's like carts going by. I'm at this Mexican restaurant, and I was being pre interviewed for this podcast I was going to go on with Heather Monahan. And I look down and it says Jerry Bruckheimer Films. I'm like, Heather, it got included in the interview with her. I was like, Heather, I gotta go. Jerry Bruckheimer is calling me right now, and so then I hung up the phone, and yeah, and I got my shot. He's like, great script, gave me certain notes and things like that. He's like, not for us right now, but I was like, okay, but I was like, but I can do these things. I can fix this, and so it's really cool. We still chat. It's amazing, but like to have that connection. And when we first connected, I said to him, I said, thank you for changing my life. Because that's been my tagline for forever. Jerry Bruckheimer bought my life rights. Only recently I've decided to change it just for my own thing. But like Jerry Bruckheimer bought my life rights twice. I'm like, and I told him, I'm like, I can go into any room and someone can say, hey, what do you do? I'm like, hey, Bruckheimer bought my life rights. It's like,
Yeah. That's
like
huge.
it's huge. Yeah. So like with almost anything that I do in Hollywood, at least like just by him doing that. And it got lucky that it sold to CBS, but bottom line is just by him doing that, that gave me such an advantage because I came here without a connection or a clue. I'm not like a Nepo baby or however that's pronounced. Like I've truly worked and clawed my way to, whatever place I'm at now. I don't view it as the top. I view it more as like the comfortability, if you will. But I have worked my butt off to get to where I am. Yeah. And so like to now have this opportunity to say thank you, and I could tell that totally caught him off guard. It was very immediately he was just kind of like disarmed. So then he was like, okay. He's like, so how can I help you? Basically, I was like, well, this is what I have, and I just want to, I gave him like the log line. I'm like, doing all these things, and it was so exciting. But had it not been for that original strike,
You're inspiring me because I'll tell you why. I had Ed Losey. You remember Ed Losey from the Night of Her Stars?
yeah.
We're friends, good friends, and I had him on 2 nights ago, weekend. To make a long story short, an evening with Ed Losey. Jen, I've interviewed all of these stars, and I'm thinking I've got to do something with this. I mean, not just stars in Hollywood, but NFL, all these just people,
Mhm.
personalities, and you're inspiring me because I'm now realizing, and this is like the theme today, I have to figure out how to package this and sell it. Because my mom has been on me. She goes, "You got, I mean, people who passed away. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
What what am I doing wrong?"
Well, I think, well, first of all, you have to be shameless. I am shameless, but I'm also like, because I'm from Connecticut, so I have like a lot of etiquette. So, like, I'm shameless in my pursuit, but I'm also a please and thank you person. I say please and thank you probably, I can't even tell you. And I thank everyone. I'm like, oh, thank you. So nice to see you. Like, hello. Like, so I think just having that general sense of like etiquette gets you everywhere in life. Just say your pleases and your thank yous, but also you have to
And
be
yes,
shameless.
ma'am, and no, ma'am, that sort of thing. Yeah,
Yeah, but you
yeah.
have to be shameless in not only in your pursuit, but in your storytelling about it. You have to be very, and that requires a lot of vulnerability and things of that nature. But like, even just by asking people, like, hey, look, here's my goal. Like, people want to help inherently. I was blown away by that with Talk Nerdy because I was without a home for a year, but it was only for 2 weeks. I only slept in the car, like, and it really was probably even a little less than that. But every time I turned around, someone was like, hey, can you come to this event with me? Hey, I got you a hotel room. I stayed in penthouse suites. I was flown on a private jet multiple times, technically. But within that year, like, it was just so unbelievable how people showed up for your own vulnerability. Like, I was being so vulnerable, and that's why all of it worked and continues to work. And even if I don't know something, at least I say that I don't know it.
That's the way. I think vulnerability, because like particularly with us as Black folks, we tend to think that we're going to be rejected because it's communicated in the media and everything. And it's a gigantic negative pall
No,
that
you're an anomaly in that scenario. You have that like genuineness about you too. You
Okay.
are just so like, it's not like, oh, like even today with Jeff, I told him, I was like, hey, I need the apartment. Like, I'm doing this interview. It wasn't like, hey, I'm doing this interview. Like, okay, whatever. I'm like, it's Seti. Like, it's just
Yeah.
you
Thank
have
you.
such
Yeah.
you have such a great vibe to you, and you have such a spirit and ness that people are going to naturally, one, be attracted to, and then two, want to help and want to support because they want to believe that that can happen to them.
Yeah,
So
and
then
that's
it kind of
that's
gives
one
people
point I
hope
feel
too.
like I have people vlog. I feel like I've let down because I expected to raise several million and all that. And I'm glad you said that because I'm now I what's happened is I spent a lot of time literally my mom's gonna hate me saying this, but giving myself up for my mom. And she's gonna even say if she sees this, I don't want you to think that way. But I can't help it.
Yeah.
I'm in the office here. This is our upstairs
Well,
office.
media is also in an interesting position. So back in, I think it was 2016, 2017, COVID messed me up. I experienced time differently. COVID, like it just, it tweaks it now. I'm sometimes like a year or two off, just literally just because of COVID. But a few years back, I was actually going to be one of the face of a media brand. I was just going to be the face of the brand. But the people that I knew at the time, and these were true movers, like the definition of movers and shakers in Hollywood, and they were just all my friends. So they joined the board, and then I brought that to the investor, and he's like, no, you need to like be the person for this company. So I'm sitting there in the Liberace offices, and I get a notification that Britney Spears posted a "Talk Nerdy to Me" T-shirt, and I'm
I
like,
saw that. Right.
what is happening right now? Yeah, but the interest. So I mean, talk about like she could have posted. There's 24 hours in a day. There's
Boy,
86
how did that happen?
seconds. It was so wild. I still have no idea. So I worked for her ex-boyfriend. So he was the producer and the creator of the West Texas Investors Club that I was on CNBC.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So and he comes from a long line of very known people in Hollywood. But bottom line is it was, I mean, it's Brit. Like, so I did very well in that meeting, let's just say, because I'm like in complete shock. But the meeting was only a half an hour, and she posted he was late. He was late getting to our meeting. And so she had just posted it because I said, I was like, man, my phone, I thought someone died or something. I'm like, man, my phone keeps like lighting up. But it was all my friends like freaking out, going, oh my God, this is so cool. This is so cool. I'm so happy for you. And, but yeah, but I've been watching media really closely, and just because of the nature of that position and whatnot. And that was around the time that Mashable sold as well. And it's like, it's really, I think the valuations were just so unbelievable and massive. And now, that was one pendulum swing. And so now it's kind of settling out. But I think,
Why do you think it's settling out? Because Vice filed for bankruptcy.
yeah, these were some of the, so I mean, you can kind of argue both sides of the coin. You can say, because we were going to acquire the assets from Gawker as well. I was one of the people who placed a bid on that, which is hilarious.
Huh.
Yeah, well, through this company, it was me and the investor. But
Right.
but that's what's so wild. I got slut shamed by, I'm going on lots of tangents, but I got slut shamed on a Gawker owned blog, Jalopnik. And then this is even more wild. I haven't told anyone this yet. This is
Yeah, who's the author?
so then, it's this guy who I didn't know wanted to sleep with me, and he's like, "Don't you want to know about this nerdy relationship blogger talking about cars?" Because I was a car influencer for a while because of the Fiesta movement. So then I'm at this
They're
event.
trying to Julie Allison. You remember how they used to do Julie Allison all the time?
Well, Julia and I are very different. And but we do things very, yeah. Her approach is different, and I really respect her. And anybody that can do that for that long and have that kind of hustle and drive in her. But yeah, but with this guy, he just wanted to sleep with me, and I didn't know. And so then I'm like, hey, I'm being flown to Austin to go. I'm staying at the W Hotel to review this car for the Dodge Dart. And he got mad because Jalopnik didn't get an invite. And so again, he's just trying to sleep with me. So this is where the root of all of this. He did the worst possible thing, really. And he was the editor, and he had one of his people write a story on me. But then now I'm at a press event. I'm writing about the Dodge Dart, which I'm not a car person, but I'm someone who buys cars. I own a car. And now all of a sudden, I was the quiet person in the corner in the spirit hood, and now all of a sudden I was the event. Everyone was like, "Whoa, when are you posting your review? Who are you? Like what?" It went so viral, and but then with the wild part too is the guy, one of the guys who his name's Bubba the Love, one of the guys who's involved in
Oh, the love bug.
something like that.
Yeah.
I jumble his name a lot, but he was involved with Hulk Hogan in the sex tape and whatnot. So this is how small of a world it is. They bought our house. He bought my parents' house in Tampa, Florida, and then recently, I know it gets even wilder, and then recently had to sell it because of the lawsuit. And I was like, I was going to acquire those assets. We placed a good bid. There were only like 13 bidders or something at the time. I just remember, but like, I didn't know that until recently. I was like, that's the dude. Like, this only came up like at Christmas dinner. I was like, that's the dude that bought our house. I was like, I was gonna acquire the assets. So I was trying to figure out like what we could do with them and like what the breakdown would be. So it was just my idea to be the content machine of, oh, okay, this has value, this is cool, you know, and then he would literally check. He's like, okay, well, here's the numbers, here's this. But I'm like, what are the odds he would then buy our house? And he lost it because he didn't, in Florida, there's something called homesteading where you can basically like have your house and they can't, no one can touch it if you go through some sort of like bankruptcy or something. He didn't know to do that. And so they unfortunately, you know, lost our family home after they did all these wonderful, they did a phenomenal job on the renovations. They really, really like, it's their home now, but unfortunately, like I said, they lost it, but they did a really great job. But like, what are the odds that I would even be in a position to like, you know, be named? Well, it was technically through this company, but be named to potentially get the Gawker assets after I was slut shamed on one of the Gawker assets, and they bought my parents' house, and my mother's maiden name happens to be Hoar, Hoar. So it's this is a full circle moment.
There's a movie. You know, I'd love to have you on an advisory board or something. We'll talk about that later. You got me going again. Thanks.
Yeah, and I think too, like in terms of content and things like that, like look at what you can do with it. So that's why I'm so interested in what I'm going to be doing next. And obviously I'll keep you guys posted on that. But like I said, check out talknerdydome.com for more info when I do launch. But bottom line is it's such an interesting time because it's not really about the content as strongly anymore as people predicted. It's more about like gaining traction. Like, why am I selling other people's stuff? Like, what, you know what I mean? There's a way to do this that is still authentic.
You're not a pessimistic creator. You're not like, I get Jim Lauterbach's, you know, newsletters, and he's kind of pessimistic at times about you're not, are you? Or how do you?
Well, not really now. Well, I'm in a completely different headspace now because I have the vision and I can see it. And it's almost like I can't wait to fast forward to, you know, just get through the meetings that I'm going through now, because all I want to do is just go. And because I'm not ready, because I mean, it's been 15 months. I really said, I didn't even mean to develop what we're developing. It was all just situational that I'm like, oh yeah, these are what feel really good on me. My friends are like, oh, can I try them on? I'm like, of course, here you go. And they're like, one of my girlfriends, when she put them on, she started to burp. So that was her sense. I'm not kidding. And almost everyone cries too. It's so many emotions because, you know, people are seeing themselves and being able to balance themselves in a really beautiful way for the first time a lot of times. So yeah, so then I just kept making them, and I have my little sensory side hustle going to my little watering hole, and then fortunately there's an optometrist next door, and I get them on Poshmark, and I was like, no, I can do something here.
Before I close or kind of wind to, I got to ask you about YouTube, because you mentioned Facebook and Instagram, but have you given up on YouTube, or is YouTube?
No, actually that's my next target. So so what I'm doing next is going to be almost all videos. So when I went viral, that directed so much traffic to the site. I view it all very differently now. Before it was build out the site, build out the brand. And now it's like, okay, well, this has been established. So it's like, all right, let me just literally turn on a camera and tell my story. So but I had to figure out, I'm such an intentional person. I had to figure out what the mission was, what the driving force is, and I won't move unless like I am that confident in what I'm doing. And now it's here. So.
Yeah. Well, on that note, Jen, I got to have you back. I mean, you are hibiscus tea from my heart.
Oh, that's a t-shirt. Okay, next time I'll have that on a t-shirt.
Yeah, and I just came out of that because You're an inspiration.
Oh, thank
You're
you.
always a genius to me. In fact, you know what? I have to before I close, I have to tell you this because it really had a profound effect on what I do. And then off camera, I'll tell you why, because I cannot tell you on camera.
Okay,
But
that's fair.
remember how you used to say I would I'll kind of get after you about vlogging about or
Oh,
putting
yeah,
everything out there, but then you said this is my safety valve. This is how I know I'm safe, right?
yeah, yeah.
I borrowed that, and you're absolutely right.
Oh, that's
You're
so
absolutely right. I'll
sweet.
tell you why off camera. It's
Oh,
something I can talk about here because the people that I'm going to talk about to you made a mistake.
yeah. Oh, and I'm sorry to hear that.
But,
Yeah,
but I'm glad. But had I not been a vlogger, this false accusation would have stuck. And it wasn't the one you think about. It was
yeah. Well, it's very freeing getting to live, even just for at the time, because your version of the truth always changes, as you're on your path. But like, it was just so freeing to get to like be me, and now I have a digital graveyard of 7,500 blog posts of what my 20s were like. So it's really
yeah.
wild.
And hey, and do you realize that the era of the Oscar parties that you and I went to is dead? That's what Ed was telling me. They don't do that
No
anymore.
way. Really?
Yeah, that's what he said. I
Yeah.
mean, I think it'd be revived, but he said the only person doing one is Byron Allen,
Oh,
you know,
interesting.
who I think could be a great investor for you. But that's just me. I'm trying to get him too. Okay, folks, please follow my friend, embrace my
Thank
friend,
you.
learn from my friend. She is awesome. I can't say enough about her. I am pleased and blessed that she has been in here with us for an hour. Love
Oh,
you very much, Jen.
thank you. Right back at you. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Hey, Jen, stick around. You don't have to do anything, folks. Later, I'll be talking about A's stuff, NFL stuff, CES stuff, because I need to get back on that horse. But remember, subscribe to Zenny62, bookmark oaklandnewsnowblog.com and Zenny62.com and oaklandnewsonline.com.
All
And
the things.
those are I'm WordPressing it now, Jen.
Yeah.
I love WordPress. All right, Jen, stick around. That ends this broadcast.